often say to black folks now, in this climate of extraordinary hate, is we did it before, and we can do it again.
Yeah.
And we had far less. Okay, we had far less to work with, and we had much greater tragedies confronting us. And I believe in that. I believe that we are the pupil of the eye, surrounded by a sea of white. But it is the pupil that contains the sight. It beholds what is before it. That's scriptural. And I believe that that is what the greatest fear is what I see you, and I can see through you.
Yeah.
And we have to remind our children that they were born with the right to be treated with respect and integrity. They didn't have to earn it. Every human being was born with the right. And we need to infuse into them their intrinsic nobility, their intrinsic greatness. That's what we have to infuse in our children, regardless of what anyone else does. I'm not waiting for someone else to educate my
Listen,
children.
I think that's what's so important, right? And you tell this story about the Statue of Liberty. And as a former history teacher, I just love these historical facts, right?
Yeah.
That we cannot negate, we cannot skip past. So you tell this story of the Statue of Liberty being commissioned in 1865 by the French artist, and the original drawing of the Statue of Liberty.
And, that story, I had no idea that it resonated the way it did with folks because I was experiencing it, right? So it's actually, the whole story is in the book, the revised book. I actually put it in there. So it was around 2007, 2008. A friend of mine called me and said me, Joy, and this friend, Floyd Myers, brother of Heavy D, he called me, says, Joy, he lives in Mount Vernon. And our families are really close. He said, I got a new job. I said, what's the new job? He said, I work for the Department of the Interior. I said, really? He said, I'm over all the national parks for the state of New York, right? So Forestry Department, all of these. He said, I'd like you to come to the Statue of Liberty. I said, no. And he said, no, why not? I said, I'm not going, Floyd. It's going to make me mad. I'm not going. He says, well, why is it going to make you mad? I said, because, I've been to France. I'd actually seen the original drawings of Bartholdi, who was the architect who did the sculpture. And I knew that the Statue of Liberty, and everybody knows in her right hand she's holding a torch. And I always ask my audience, what is she holding in her left hand? Right? And when I was at the Statue of Liberty, because I eventually agreed, because Floyd was insistent, and he said, I can give you a pass, we can go up in her eye and everything. I said, okay. So when I go there, I'm going there with the knowledge that the Statue of Liberty was holding originally in her left hand broken chains. Again, commissioned 1865, pretty important date, end of slavery, end of the Civil War. All of those things were why. She is a statue of what? Liberty. Which makes sense. So she has broken chains in her left hand. Now she's holding a rectangular object with a Roman numeral on it. That's what she's holding. So I'm telling Floyd, I said, I know for a fact this is a historical document. I know it is. So first thing that happens when you go to Statue of Liberty, and I actually went to the first time with a friend of mine, and her name is Faith Holmes. And Faith is white, very white, blonde hair, blue eyes. She almost got us thrown out of the place. She had a meltdown, right? I'm going, look, you can't be melting down here. Okay, we're not having it, news at 11. So we're there, and I'm really, really very, very, the ranger who was, you get taken together and you get put in these groups. You're assigned a ranger. And he was very enthusiastic. He really was. A really enthusiastic man. He says, so now, I am going to be your ranger today. And they tell you more about the Statue of Liberty than you ever want to know. They tell you why it's green, because it was copper and it oxidized. They tell you how they got it over there. They tell you how they changed the torch a couple of times. They tell you that they even show you how thin it is, right? Just how thin the whole thing is, right? And he says, and if you have any questions, so of course.
Excuse me.
My hand shot up, right? And I said, I was wondering if you're going to talk about the chains, right? So now you got to understand, every 20 minutes, thousands of people are getting off that ferry, coming to Ellis Island, coming to Statue of Liberty. So I say something about chains, and now you got people translating it into different languages. They go, she said something about chains, right? So because I knew that she was holding, those broken chains. So now at this point, I'm like, they got to be here somewhere. So Floyd and I are now looking for the historical document that I said, the picture of it. I said, they can't not have it. It's a Statue of Liberty. They got to have it there. So we go into the basement of the Statue of Liberty.
This was so crazy to me.
We're in the basement of the Statue of Liberty. We find the document encased in glass behind figurines facing a wall in a hallway. So here we have the truth hidden in plain sight. So I'm sitting there going, so Floyd, I take a picture of it. The picture is in the book, right? So I took a picture and I said, this is insane. I said, this is really insane that, here we have that picture. Well, I then asked my audience, who won the argument? Because Bartholdi insisted that the chains remain. He really did. He was adamant. He was an advocate for abolitionism. He said the chains got to stay. And I asked the audience, who won? Did Bartholdi win or did the United States win? And they always say, well, the United States won. I said, no, they didn't. Bartholdi won. The chains are actually still there. And they have always been there the entire time at her feet, where it is impossible to see them under any circumstances.
Yeah.
Those broken shackles are on both sides. On her, as she's looks like she's walking, there are broken shackles at her feet. So the agreement was, we'll keep the chains, but we'll make it so no one can see them. Yeah. Because if she's on a pedestal, the Statue of Liberty, if no one who's ever been, sometimes they don't realize, because we always see her like she's standing flat on the ground, but she's on a huge pedestal. Right. So you can't see over to see the chains, and if you're inside, you can't see them. So they're there and they're hidden. So now I'm feeling some kind of way, right? But I'm thinking, Floyd just got the job. You know what I'm saying? The man.
I can't let him lose his good black job.
The man, I can't get the man. So I took Floyd, and Floyd, being Floyd, he said, go on and bring it, Joy. Go on and bring it. So I spoke to his supervisor. I said, I would like to pay to have a picture of the chains at her feet so that they're on display. And they're explained. And he said, no. I said, I'll tell you what I can do. I said, I'm sure that I can get, just across the water, a black sculptor that will just sculpt that part. Because God knows they show you every aspect of the Statue of Liberty. And he says, yeah, no. I said, okay, I'm going to tell on you. And so I travel all over the world. Yeah. For a living, I travel all over the world. And I told this story. And I showed the pictures all over the world. So I get this call from the Department of the Interior. They said, we'd like to talk to you, Dr. DeGruy. And I'm going, I'm not scared. I'm from South Central. But I did tell my family where I was going. So they call me, and I come over, and his boss, I think it was his boss's boss, who said to me, Dr. DeGruy, we want to, apologize, and we want to acknowledge that we've been negligent, and we want to correct this. We want to immediately correct this. And the first thing we want to do is, we want to hire you to train all our rangers. I said, okay. And we're going to correct this negligence we've shown. So I didn't believe him. So I went back undercover, right? Because I wanted to know a couple of things. I wanted to know if they were going to first talk about the chains unasked, because I had asked about the chains. And I was assigned with my little group. This is 2013, 2014. I'll go back, and I want to know if they've actually changed that. And my third visit, I go back, and I have a great ranger. The ranger not only tells the story of the chains, turns to me and says, "This is American history I'm sharing. It is your history, and it is my history, and I am proud to tell the story." It's a white ranger, right? So I'm thinking, great, this is wonderful. And the next thing I know, well, on the second visit, I had seen the picture displayed, and all that was great. But then in 2019, May 23rd, the Washington Post, they now have a museum that wasn't there, and they have a huge museum now at the Statue of Liberty, and it says the Statue of Liberty was designed to celebrate freed slaves not immigrants. Its new museum now recounts. And it goes on to explain that the immigration came later.
Right.
Years later it came. It was literally commissioned to celebrate the end of slavery. But when black people walk through, you hear white people say, oh, well, you know, my great-great and my great-great. But black men, women, and children feel no connection to Lady Liberty.
Come on.
But how much prouder would they be if they knew that their ancestors that didn't come through Ellis Island, that came chained together in the belly of ships, that she was standing on those shackles? How much prouder would those young people be? How much honor would they display in understanding who paid for them?
Yeah.
You erase the chains, you erase me. So why don't we show the chains? And that was the whole point, because you see, once you show the chains, you've got to explain them.
You got to explain
And do
them.
you understand,
Yeah.
every black man, woman, and child can literally say, oh no, that's mine.
That's mine.
That's mine. And all of this time, America lied to its people and to the world. The most recognized symbol probably on the planet. And we've never told the truth.
Hey, Vault family, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this clip, make sure to check out our full interview on our channel at Vault Empowers Talks. We don't just scratch the surface. We dive deep into the lives of some of the world's most influential leaders and change makers. Don't forget to like, to comment, and be sure to subscribe for more inspiring conversations. See you next time.